I'd love for you to give me a donation. Can you send me some gift cards? Oh, wait, don't send them to me. Just send me the numbers because I need this now. That's essentially the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because David wouldn't do that.
Anymore.
First of all, not anymore. Because that would have been the next progression from his button empire.
That's exactly what it was.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 345 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Carden. Good afternoon, Donna.
Hello, David.
So last week we had a in-depth discussion of the PriceX boot camp.
Well, the need for the training is why we're having it and why we built it. And, so at least, I don't know. Hopefully everybody understands the intent and they get excited like we do when we start talking about it.
Yeah.
At least I get excited about it because, nerd.
I mean, we've already got people going, I'm coming.
I know.
And,
you should have heard everybody yelling when we had somebody sign up.
Yep. Already got sign-ups, and had a couple people email. It's like, oh, I can't make it. Doggone it. I'm like, well, it won't be another one this year. I can promise you that.
I know. We've had that question already. When will you be doing another one? I gotta get through this one first.
That's right. But I want to go ahead and mention that right off the bat, that the Privacy and Security Boot Camp is going to be September 12, 13, 14, and 15. And you can find more information at PriceXBootCamp.com.
Yes.
But today we're going to be talking about some harsh realities.
It is harsh.
It is. Maybe get on a soapbox or two, so bear with us.
It's like the harsh reality. I'll never forget that a friend of mine's kid had just graduated from college and really hadn't calculated the impact of taxes on your paycheck.
Yeah.
And they're thinking they're going to have all this money. Have you calculated this in, this in, this in, this in? Really? Yeah. You got to calculate all that in. So I'm not going to have all that extra money I thought I was going to have because I already found out rent's more than I thought it was going to be. And this is more. Yeah, this is a harsh reality like what we're talking about today.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to think when I would hear adult business owners talk about writing it off your taxes, I was under the impression that, you just say, if it costs you $100, you just take $100 off your taxes. So it's almost like free money.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of adults that still think that. That'll tell you, well, you can write it off.
Yeah.
No.
I had a very harsh reality hit me when I was, I don't know, I think I was maybe 18 years old, and I had this little business making buttons. You remember you used to make the little buttons with sayings on it. Anyway, I had this little business where I was making buttons because some magazine had, you could buy this whole button making kit back when there were magazines where you could buy stuff.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I was making like $100 or $200 a month, making these buttons. And my family had a brick and mortar business at the time. And so I kind of ran it out of there. Well, somebody overnight, one night decided to kick in the door and rob the business. And the only thing they took was my measly little bit of money that I had in my drawer. And when
you were targeted, David. You and your button empire were targeted.
I know. They took all like $70-something of my money. And I remember asking my dad, I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I mean, they stole my money. And he's like, write it off your taxes. And to this day, he reminds me of that story.
Same thing. Same bat channel, just, So, our harsh realities that we will discuss shortly. I think that we've given you a good idea of how much fun it is of what we're talking about.
Yep.
And our other segment, our HIPAA.
HIPAA.
Say what? Yeah. It's a harsh reality too.
Yeah. Well, we'll dive in. We'll go ahead and dive into the HIPAA Say What, but I do want to remind everybody, if you want to know more about Carden or the Carden Club, that you can go to cardenhq.com. If you want to know more about HIPAA for MSPs, it's HIPAA4MSPs.com. How about that? Easy peasy.
Yes. That's pretty straightforward. How we do that.
Yep. And as always, the website for the podcast, helpmewithhipaa.com. And actually, you can even misspell HIPAA and you'll get there. It's the only time you can be wrong and still be right.
You will.
unless you're like a weather person.
Yeah, but again, we've had that whole weather conversation.
Yeah.
So is predicting the future is a hard job.
It is. Yeah, it is. But there are some things that are absolutes. Like I can tell you that there are certain times when I open my mouth that I can tell you what the future holds.
Oh, you're in a mood today, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So
share us out on social media, get somebody to listen. There's a lot of podcasts out there, and we're consistently one of the, fairly well-ranked podcasts in the world, but there's so many now. We just need you to, hook us up. Give us a listener or two. And thanks to our donors.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for those who are leaving reviews. I had somebody email me last week and said, I'm going to leave you a review because you asked for it. I'm like, it's amazing what happens when you just ask for it.
That's awesome. So we appreciate all of that.
But if, for us, it's like 345 episodes. We're talking again this week about something else. But for some people, they're like, I just found you. And I'm so excited. So we have to keep that in mind that even though we've been around for years, some people are just finding us. And then they're just now digging down the rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah. And, we apologize for some episodes in advance, but they are fun.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, they are that. All right, so HIPAA Say What? You've got some news about modernizing HIPAA.
Well, you see all the headlines as always, and people get excited. Donna, did you see? What do you think of this? And
It's always a changing. It's always a changing.
Oh, God. Yes, we'll get to that in a minute. Senators Tammy Baldwin and Bill Cassidy have introduced, it's a bipartisan, it rarely happens, but in healthcare, we do get to see that stuff. Mm-hmm. Introduced the Health Data Use and Privacy Commission Act, intending to modernize health data privacy laws to reflect the current tech landscape. Don't get excited. It needs to be done because we know it. We talk about this all the time. That these things were from the early 2000s. Everything has changed since the time they came out. There's so much more to worry about. However, all this does is establish a commission to evaluate it and tell them what to do. How should they change it? And to make it part of the bigger data use and privacy standards, because most of the other, they even talk about most of the other privacy and data breach and data use requirements do a carve out for healthcare. Nobody's looking at changing healthcare like they should. So great news if this becomes a thing, but don't get excited. It ain't going to change anything in your life. Not for a long time.
Yeah. I hope it passes because I just want to be able to say H. Dupka. Are you following H. Dupka?
Yeah. We're doing the H. Dupka review. Did you hear what H. Dupka had to say? Yeah. That'll be fun.
I just want to say that.
Yeah, now we won't be able to stop. Hey, have you checked on H. Dupka? How did it go?
It's another one of those ever-changing regulations.
You're gonna get you gonna get to drill that home just.
I'm gonna drill this home because I'm tired of hearing it.
I know.
So
Me too. All right. So, and then the other thing is, we got a question that came in this week. Well, it was we get questions. Let's just say we get questions, and we have folks that they work with us for a little while, and then things change in their business, and we don't hear from them a while, and then we hear from them again, and then woof, they disappear, and then they come back. So we have a lot of that in our world, right? I mean, you get it too, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, we need help. Wait, that's how much it's going to cost. We'll get back to you.
Yeah. Or the ones that are my favorite, like happened this morning, which is everything's on fire. I need you immediately. And literally within 5 minutes, we're calling and they're like, can you call back after lunch? We're busy.
Yeah. At least it wasn't one of those. So here's the scenario. We get an email and I've, changed it up a bit just to anonymize, if we'll say. It starts with they're asking for some input. Can you help guide us through finding the source of what may be a rising problem? Okay, right away, it's like,
Yeah.
Okay. So they had a handful of users reach out and say they got a text message from our new CEO, and then in parentheses, which he did not send, of course. Mm-hmm. So right away, you're like, okay. The source of these texts are real people. Now, this is the part. Anyway, the real people using Google Voice, as you can see by the example below, and they do give a screenshot, but we're not going to include it. They have come from multiple different Google Voice DIDs, direct inward dials. So first of all, it's coming from real people, not a robot.
Mm-hmm.
And the prove you're not a robot thing, the robots will not be involved in this kind of stuff. This kind of work is not what the robots do. So I don't know what they meant by real people. It's the same real people that are attacking and trying to smish and fish and calling with it. It's a real person that calls and says, "Hey, I need you to get in and look because I'm Microsoft calling." It is real people that do that. At no time did the conversation, so right away, conversations, that means it went two ways. Did the conversations last long enough for any links to be sent? But it is very concerning. Can you help us track this down? Lots of questions, that come to mind right away.
Mm-hmm.
And the example was that actually someone replied, and then the request was go get me some gift cards for something. And then the employee's like, that doesn't sound right. But we both know lots of people have fallen for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have
I'm the CEO.
Last week.
Really?
Yeah.
It's sad. Anyway, so we were like, well, give us more. And so here was the additional information they sent. The only correlation between all the users is that they all use LinkedIn. Nothing else really makes sense. We have a couple of instances of compromised email over the last year, but all were resolved fairly quickly.
Which matters not.
I know, right? And then proceeds to say, I'm focusing on LinkedIn for two reasons. The data breach LinkedIn had
years ago.
Your compromised email accounts last June, which I mean, okay. And then this all started about 10 days after our CEO noted his promotion online and changed his title on LinkedIn. We started getting these spear phishing attempts. I'm a bit of a loss. Okay, well, you're standing right on it. You're standing right on it because, as I responded, the minute the change is made on LinkedIn that there's a new CEO, every employee listed as an employee on LinkedIn will be a target. Mm-hmm. Period. That's just the way they work. maybe it's part of it's that whole lack of understanding when they say things like it's a real person. These are real people that work for a criminal enterprise that's intent is to steal your money.
Yeah, it's a part of their marketing program to figure out who CEOs are and who
Just
works there.
Just like, the number of times you and I get these, hey, we'd be happy to do these cold calls for you. They're essentially doing them themselves. They're doing the research, pulling the list. They take the list from there, run it against phone numbers from other breaches. If they exist anywhere, they're going to use them. And remember, the email account compromise you mentioned. I mean, between me and you, David, what do you think the statistical likelihood is if they had a few of them that the entire company contact list was exfiltrated at least once?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And I
likelihood
love how it
is-
says resolved fairly quickly. Like, what does that mean? Fairly quickly? 15 minutes? I doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you resolve it in the same day, you know how much I can steal from you if you give me in a day?
Well, I mean, it's just a matter of seconds when you log in that they download the whole account. It's just gone. We've seen that in forensics details where an email account is compromised. Somebody logs in, and within a matter of seconds, the entire email account, particularly when it's, in an exchange-based one where they just, you know what that means, right? That's a technical term.
Yep.
So statistical likelihood that all the employees, high. The fact that they're connected via LinkedIn, high. So they use the numbers from the other exfiltrations and reach out to all the employees, which if their number's not published on LinkedIn and their contact information, it's pretty easy to find. And there you have it. And this whole concept of using Google Voice, hello, that's just like using a Gmail account to send an email.
Yeah. And, you don't have some of the same protections like email does when you've got, you don't have DKIM and SPF and part of the DMARC that kind of helps you verify domains and all that kind of stuff. You don't have that with texting.
Yeah. Well, and that's why they're moving away. First of all, everybody's texting everything all the time. Even when they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're answering questions in a text. Like, hey, it's your mom. When's your birthday? Mom, you're so funny. You know my birthday's this. But I pointed out that they need to do some intense training on their team, that they never respond to a text or a voice message from numbers they don't know where somebody says, hey, it's me. If you get a text saying, hey, this is David Sims from the Help Me With HIPAA podcast, I'd love for you to give me a donation. Can you send me some gift cards? Oh, wait, don't send them to me. Just send me the numbers because I need this now. That's essentially the same thing. Because David wouldn't do that
Anymore.
First of all, not anymore, because that would have been the next progression from his button empire.
That's exactly what it was.
And so, they right now it's tax season. They should watch for anybody with any kind of accounting titles. You're going to get fake invoices from your vendors, your fake W-2 details. I mean, they're going to be spoofed like crazy because that's the likelihood. So I don't know what they'll do with it, but it's important to understand if somebody posts something on LinkedIn, and here's the thing, this is that harsh reality. We use LinkedIn as a professional networking tool, and that is a good thing. And I find it quite valuable. I don't know about you, David, but I make a lot of really good connections that way and learn a lot and get a lot of news that is very specialized, if you will, because
Mhm.
it's in your professional world. But because you're on there and you want people to actually communicate with you, you have to give them the ability to communicate with you. So now they will. And that includes all the people who, and I don't know, I get 2 or 3 a day of somebody that wants to do cold calls for me or develop software or something. And they're legit companies. They're just cold calling. They're cold calling about cold calling.
Yeah.
I know
Or the
you're
ones
knowing.
who want to write blog posts for me.
Oh, I know. I love the ones that I think we're a perfect guest or a perfect blog post for your Help Me with HIPAA. And it's about perfume or something, Okay. See you, bye. But those are the harsh realities we live in. Let's move on to the harsh realities of the day that we're featuring.
All right. Yeah. So this comes from an article. So 3 tips for facing harsh truths of cybersecurity in 2022.
Part 1.
Part 1. This comes from a Threat Post. The writer, Sonia Duffin. Thanks, Sonia. I'm sure you're a listener. But yeah, I read this one and I, had to send it over to Donna. I'm like, check this out.
I read it and sent it to you. I'm sure of it.
I think I read it and sent it to you. But it wouldn't be the first time that we've read the same thing and then sent it to each other.
No, it wouldn't. Who knows? We can't keep up, with what day it is most of the time. We're not even going to go through the tips that are covered, and they're great tips. They are plenty of great information in them. I encourage you to go read the whole article. But the beginning of the article is the topic of our whole episode. Just the beginning. Because until we get past this, it doesn't matter what the tips are. And we've got so many problems getting past this.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that it started with be forewarned. Okay, you're going to need to read it.
Was a forewarned. I don't know.
There we go.
Be forewarned. I'm about to lay down some harsh truths here.
Yeah. Hence the title. Here we go.
Yeah. So it's, it's not unlike us to say, here's the truths about something versus, these aren't myths, these are truths.
Mm-hmm.
But when they're harsh truths, that means that you don't know what you don't know. And even when you are told the truth about it, you don't want to believe it. So the first one is, wake up, folks. Ransomware is prevalent. And there is no way to completely eliminate the threat.
She nailed that one.
So for all the people out there that try to tell you that there's all these things you can do to completely remove ransomware as a threat.
We're ransomware proof.
Yeah.
Right then, I am leery.
Yeah. No. No. Just even if you were able to stop something with ransomware today, they will pivot and it'll be some different way they do it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you could be ransomware proof if you have no data, 0 data, none. And you wouldn't be listening to this podcast because you'd be completely off the grid.
So I guess you could say ransomware resistant. Isn't that how you do it when you're not waterproof? You're water resistant?
Yeah, down to 3 feet.
Yeah, it's ransomware resistant, I guess.
Yeah, we're weather resistant as long as you don't have a bad storm or too hot a day or too cold.
Don't go swimming.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Some vendor's going to email us and be like, we are ransomware proof.
I know, right? You could say whatever you want in your marketing. And, and we could say in our marketing, that we've, things like, well, we've never had a client fail an audit. Well, there's really not a thing about failing an audit. OCR doesn't go, you failed an audit. It's just not how. Doesn't work that way. But we could say it, and it's the same kind of thing.
The thing I want to bring out about that one sentence, though, is that she specifically says the threat. And that's important because that's what you're really looking at, is you're looking at how can I identify the threats to my business, and then how am I going to manage these threats?
Yes. I can mitigate the damage that will occur. I cannot eliminate the threat of ransomware from my ecosystem.
Yep. It's what's that I read a few weeks ago? Cyber risks are not problems you can solve. They are problems that must be managed. And this is, ransomware. You can't solve ransomware, but you have to manage it.
Yes.
It's like that itch you have from that thing you've got. It's got to be managed.
There's so many things that we could go down a rabbit hole with, but let's don't. The second point, well, and I love how they put this. Second, at this point, you should operate under the assumption that hackers are already in your systems or could easily access them at any moment.
Yeah, and I know you've said that a number of times on this show.
Well, I mean, I had a meeting today and like 2 separate client issues. IT is operating the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
I love it when, and so here's how she completes this, how they say it. It should come as no surprise when I tell you that the sophisticated, you thought I wasn't going to make that one out, cyber criminals behind today's ransomware threats have been consistently getting past even the best frontline security, and for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, if you are operating under the assumption that you are keeping them out, you're already failing.
Yeah. You change your assumptions.
Because we know about assume. So, I mean, that alone, if we could just get people to understand that, it would make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I explained today, I said they're operating under the premise that they've got a castle they've built, and they've managing to protect that castle from the horses, the arrows, and the cannons coming at it. And they're still coming. It's not like those are gone. Those threats have not been eliminated either. However, the world we live in today, and what do you think? In 2010, that might have been how security operated, you think?
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably good.
About 12 years ago.
About 12 years ago, yeah. I can recall having that level of security.
Yeah. That you felt like, oh, okay, I'm at least, I've got the opportunity to keep them out. But the tools that were coming at us were also those kind of tools in all relativity.
Mm-hmm.
But today, we've got silent drones flying overhead while all of that's going on, dropping little things inside the castle, and they're sitting there for a while before they're going to go off, number one. And number two is all the people in the castle are just walking out the back door with your stuff while you're defending the front door. They've got a back door out and letting people in. Or they're out going, hey, let me in. And you got to let them in. You got to let them come and go. It's not the same. It's not the same.
No.
So using terms like closed network, it just gives me a rash. So that's the second harsh reality. And I think, going back to that episode between where you where I got a week off for the first time in 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
almost 7. We're about to hit 7 years. Where you and Gary discussed the difference between cybersecurity and IT.
Yep.
I think this assumption falls under the part where IT still assumes that they cover cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, you and your business, you draw a line between what's IT, what's your managed service offering for security, and then where you bring in help.
Right.
What's the difference?
Well, from just an IT standpoint, when somebody says I want IT, they usually mean I need somebody that can fix stuff when it's not working.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Make my computers talk to each other.
And then, the cybersecurity piece of it is, first of all, understanding how deep down the rabbit hole you want to go in your business, because even between different MSPs, there's a different level that people are willing to go through. Some people are just skimming the surface and then they're trying to outsource the rest of it. Some people are going a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole like we are. And then, there are the MSSPs, the true MSSPs, that they don't even offer IT support. They're not going to fix your printer problem. They're not going to get you on the internet. They're only there to do security, and that's all they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's getting more difficult to buy IT services because of that, because it's fracturing so much that it's even hard for us to look at somebody else's quote and figure out what they're doing. So, but there's a huge difference in all of those. They're all necessary, but they're necessary in different ways. And you just have to know what you're getting. The challenge I have that drives me nuts is the most important thing is protecting that business and protecting its users and protecting the data. You don't want something bad to happen. But clients really feel like the most important thing is the fact they can't get email within 15 minutes or something won't print, or, it's these things that they feel immediately and they give that such a priority. Like they will flip out if they click send on an email and the person didn't get it within 2 minutes sometimes. But, and I'm sitting there thinking that is not important, when the most important thing is making sure that your castle doesn't get blown all to pieces. And you're worried about whether or not drawbridge is creaking when it goes up and down.
That's a good analogy. I like that one.
Yeah.
So the assumption that they're not already in there is a problem that I find a really core issue to properly securing things right now.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's your IT people or your business owner or anybody else, that there's an assumption that we're still just protecting the perimeter and we're good.
Well, I think we need to move away, not necessarily move away from it, but in addition to proving we have security, and we talk about that a lot, you got to prove you're doing these things. Maybe the next step to that is also proving that security is effectively doing what it's supposed to do. It's kind of like the saying, I can prove I have a backup, but can I prove that backup is recoverable?
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's kind of where security may be going, where you have to, 1, prove you have it, but 2, prove it's actually doing what it's supposed to do.
Well, and we always say you've got to do that constantly. And we say audits, which freak people out because they think of, accounting audits. No, we're auditing your processes. We're auditing the output and the desired outcomes versus the real outcomes.
Yep.
There's this, it's not easy to do that anymore. Used to, you didn't have to. Remember it was like, oh, I got antivirus on, it's up to date, and I'm making sure it's up to date. I'm good.
Yeah. What else do you want?
Okay, we can't live like that anymore. We've got to be saying, is it detecting things? What is the latest update that the vendor is sending? What other things does it protect from? How will it respond to things? You can't just go.
Yeah. If you've been running any kind of security, let's just say for a year, you've been running it for a year and it's never indicated anything. It's probably not working because you should be getting security incidents fairly often.
Well, and you should be getting reports showing you that that's happening on your network.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no news is good news is not good news in what we do.
Mm-mm. There should be something.
Yeah. It's they often say, if you tell me you've never had a breach to report to HHS, then you're not looking.
Yep.
Because that's, you know, you've been supposed to do this since 2009. And at this point, you know, over a decade later, and you still say you've never had one, you're not looking.
Well, that's the red flag now. Like it used to be, people would say, well, I don't want to report this incident because it'll raise flags and I might get it audited. Well, now it's just the opposite. Like if you don't report anything, that's a big red flag. The likelihood you've not had anything, slim to none.
Yeah. Unless you just opened your business yesterday, there's a possibility.
Yeah.
But you must assume the problem exists, even if you're not seeing it. And then that brings us to the very sad third thing, which if you actually accept the third thing, it might make you accept, well, no, I don't know. No, back off. That's not going to happen. But here's the thing, that once you accept the second thing and the first thing, the next thing you need to realize the harshest part of this reality. Because I truly think it is the worst thing on here. Now let's have a very dramatic pause while we... So, as they say in the article, third, cyber criminals may know your systems and infrastructure better than you do. Because
that is
once in, it is painful. Once in, their strategy is to lay low and remain hidden while they learn as much as they can. Then they strike at the optimal time to inflict as much damage as possible to ensure a hefty payday.
Yeah, and don't forget that if these cyber criminals get in, part of their game plan is to make sure your systems are running as smoothly as possible. I mean, like butter. They run so well because they don't want IT looking at anything and digging into problems. And so we've heard times where the criminals have come in, they've patched systems, they've fixed, open ports that were there. I mean, they did a better job of addressing your cybersecurity issues than your IT did.
They've run out other criminals that were in there that weren't as good or didn't have as much of a foothold.
I know. So, they're going to go in there and they're going to fix everything. They're going to lay low. They're going to learn everything. And it's hard. Even for an MSP, it's very difficult to have somebody sitting there learning their client systems inside and out to that degree. Because it's a different point of view. You've got somebody who's going, I'm not going to be here forever. I'm going to be here for a few months, and then I'm going to drop a bomb and I'm going to get a big payday. An MSP is not doing that. They can't afford to have somebody sitting there in your systems for 8 hours a day, learning everything inside and out, trying to figure stuff out. I mean, we just had something similar last week where a client had an email problem, and then come to find out they had this third-party filtering service, and then they're asking us, why didn't we know that one of their employees installed this third-party filtering service before we became their MSP?
We detected that it was there if we're lucky. But, when you come in behind other people.
I know. It's like it's think about when you're buying a house, right? You buy a house, somebody comes in, they do their inspection, they find some things or whatever. You buy the house. And then lo and behold, 2 years, 3 years down the road, you find out there are bad issues that nobody found.
Mhm.
Because sometimes they just don't come to anybody's attention until things start going bad.
Well, and a lot of times though, it's stuff like, I might look at code that I wrote or a little script I put together 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And when I did that, I knew what I knew then. But I guarantee you, I know more things to worry about when I'm writing that code or that script today than I knew then.
Mhm.
So I'll look at it and go, well, that's not very efficient. Almost always I see, well, wonder why I did it that way. And that's me looking at my own work, and it works. It does what it needs to do,
Mhm.
but I know more about it now. It needs to do more. It needs to be more efficient, more effective. It could do better than what it was then. But I don't go back and look at those because they're working.
Mhm.
So the
Well,
same thing happens.
the way things integrate now and how you can connect so many things together, it's fantastic for productivity.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare for IT to try to
Yeah.
figure out, because no matter how well I'm protecting your network and all this other stuff, if you go out and decide you want to hook your Microsoft account to some other third-party cloud thing and your email starts going through it, or it attaches something to your process, your email process, I mean, chances are I'm not going to know about it.
No, because you're not tracking at that level.
No.
And that's the exact thing that we're looking at here. Is so many people say, well, you only have to do a risk analysis every couple of years.
Yeah, just answer these questions, which ugh.
If you're never looking at where's my data, how's it coming and going, what systems are accessing it, and mapping that out and reevaluating it instead of just saying nothing's changed.
Mhm.
Has anything changed on your network in the last year? The chances of that being no are very low. I mean, even in home networks today,
Mhm.
you got your kids coming in and they're connecting stuff you don't even know is out there unless you're looking.
Yeah. But speaking of things changing all the time, you want to address this? You want to get on our soapbox here for a second?
Yes, let's do, David.
So and this is kind of not really related to 3 tips.
Well, it is related to what we understand changes.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. Is some people think that we're going to talk about compliance frameworks and cybersecurity frameworks. I've seen a number of times, and it just so happened recently, I saw one, I think it was today, a new, quote unquote, new vendor out selling this compliance stuff. And part of their sales thing is regulations like HIPAA and cybersecurity frameworks change all the time. And it's so difficult to keep up with what's going on. And how many times have you heard that, Donna? I've heard it. I've heard it from vendors. I've heard it from other MSPs. Like, all this stuff changes all the time.
When people say to us, how do we keep up?
Yeah, how do you keep up with HIPAA? It changes all the time. And you and I both are like, what?
No, it does not.
So understand that these frameworks, cybersecurity framework, hiccup, pick your flavor, doesn't matter. These things do not change all the time.
Now, the ones outside healthcare, different story.
Mm-hmm.
The CIS ones, they change. They make sure they update them on a regular basis. The high trust ones, they update. But guess what? They're making money off of it every time you have to update. The ones that don't make money off of it when you have to update, they're not changing.
Yeah.
Let's just be clear.
Yeah. And then you've got, on the other side, you've got the compliance regulations like HIPAA, since that's, where we live.
Uh-huh.
People talk about it changing. It changes all the time. And what they don't realize is that these things aren't changing. What changes is their understanding of it. They finally realized that HIPAA says something that they weren't aware of, and they go, "Oh my gosh, that must be new. Never heard that before." I'm like,
No.
"Oh, it's not new. You're just now learning about it."
So, yeah, that's a perfect. Okay, so here we go. We just mentioned in May, it'll be 7 years we've done this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
In that time, 7 years, the only changes to HIPAA was the one amendment to high tech that is optional and added in January 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's the optional recognized security practices piece that most people don't even know about.
Right.
And it's optional, but there's been no other change to HIPAA as far as the law and the regulations.
Except you can't ask if I'm wearing a mask.
Oh, God. I saw the meme where there's a lady just sitting there exhausted with her head hanging down, shaking it. And it said, Miss HIPAA. That's what Miss HIPAA looks like every time y'all say it wrong. Every time y'all do their, I'm going to have to find one that we can have. Ooh, we can have Murphy, the hippopotamus, hanging its head, shaking its head.
Yeah, had the antlers moving.
Yeah, their whole
yeah,
crazy.
But just understand that these things can often be overwhelming. There's a lot of information to the frameworks. There's a lot of information to compliance and HIPAA. That's why we're in business, is to understand these things and to help other people understand them and how they apply to them. Because
we spend a ton of time understanding them because there is a lot to understand.
Mm-hmm.
But not because, I'll tell you what's changing. The threat landscape is changing.
Oh, yeah. And that changes all the time. If you want to throw
constant.
something out there, yeah. And that's another frustration point for IT, is because we can actually tell you today, this is what you should do. And literally a year from now, I might be telling you that that's not enough anymore, or that we need to take this away and add this thing, or this thing I told you last year not to worry about. Now you got to worry about it.
Yeah.
And people have this mindset that as long as I have antivirus, I'm good. They don't keep up with the fact that the threat landscape is moving 1,000 miles a second, and their mentality toward it is like a flipping snail going up an icy road.
Oh, it's just crazy. And it is, I'm sorry, but the snail going up an icy road, I just all of a sudden, what the camera would have to pan in to get the snail across it. But the big issue here is that assumption. So I can't keep up because it's always changing on one side of the coin. And then on the other side of the coin, I'm doing what I've always done. We got a closed network. I don't have to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's the difference. You think you understand this, but you don't know what you don't know. And you think on the other side that because you didn't know what you didn't know, whenever you hear something new, it's a change. So you don't accept that you don't know what you don't know over here, and you don't accept that you don't know what you don't know over here. You just got to accept you don't know what you don't know.
People don't want to hear that their reality changed and everything else stayed the same.
That's a good way to put it. So these are harsh reality moments here that we are trying to rip off the Band-Aid. So just because it seems like something changed, it could simply be your understanding of it changed.
Yeah, that's right.
And just because you think you understand it does not mean it hasn't changed.
It also doesn't mean that your understanding of it is right.
Exactly. That what you thought you understood before, you could still be over here unaware that that's not right. That's why I always assume that I've missed something, or I always assume, that there's some area that I haven't thought about, or something I haven't checked recently, or, that's going to be the bomb in the castle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, though, to just close out on speaking of blowing things up. Did you hear the whole thing where the cops got called at the Home Depot? I mean, this has really happened. They call the police at the Home Depot because multiple people say there's a guy saying he's going to blow things up. They get the cops there, and I swear to you, if I had not seen the interviews, I know you're going to think I'm making this up. Not. What had happened was when they go find the guy's coming out of the bathroom, and he's looking at, so what had happened was he goes into the bathroom and says,
"Y'all better get out of here.
I'm about to blow this place up."
Using a natural gas bomb.
So an innocent.
That's a bad choice of words, but you would think, given the room he's in, it would make sense.
But you can't, at the same time, both sides, I understand where they were.
Somebody
and I'm pretty sure that the cops got there and knew what he meant.
He's probably like, all you gotta do is walk in there. You know exactly what I meant.
That, I'm fixing to blow this place up. So
all right.
That's enough to end on today.
Yeah, that's all right. Folks, there's your 3 tips and probably 3 rants and then 1 from left field. And thanks for listening to today's podcast. Join us next week, and you might want to make sure you drink your coffee before you listen so you don't spit it everywhere.
Yeah, this new recording cadence, we don't know where it's going to go.
All right. So remember what we asked you at the beginning. Please share us out. Tell somebody about it. Leave us a review. Thanks again. And remember, HIPAA's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.